I will be honest, when I started getting emails from Tim, I had a ton of questions because his story is pretty interesting. I think I got most of them answered. I only have like 15 more before I leave. So this is Tim Gallenbeck, am I saying?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Tim's first time on the Family Promise Storyteller stage. He spends his time doing sketch art. Yeah, a lot of questions around that, right? Now you have it in your head too, right? How do you not make it so it breaks and you go, this would be me. Ah! And then I would quit and go do something else. And then he's also trying to be on the show American Ninja Warrior. So, you know, there's the other 10 questions that I have for Tim about this. His favorite item in his house is the robot vacuum. Why? Because it saves so much time cleaning up after the pets. That way he has more time to focus on his many hobbies. His story is a journey of finding home through tragedy, seeing the biggest purpose of life after my experience with 2 natural disasters. Please welcome Tim.
Thanks, everybody. This is my first time ever doing a story, by the way, too, so. It was 2004. It was a beautiful summer day in Wisconsin. One of those days that you just want to be outside enjoying every minute. That summer, my daughter just turned 1, and we were planning on going to visit my dad and stepmom, who lived about an hour or half hour away. We lived on a picturesque old hobby farm surrounded by cornfields, a big red barn, classic concrete silo, and beautiful gardens throughout their property. They were super proud of the home they created and loved to give tours of the property, or the gardens, to the local community and anyone who would stop by for a visit. So as we arrived, we were greeted by their 2 dogs who barked at us as they did everybody who drove by. And as we were pulling in the driveway, I happened to see my dad coming out of the back door with his trusty sidekick on his shoulder, a big macaw, one of his many exotic birds. He was a very cool character, my dad. He was a man of many talents, from woodworking and being an artist, award-winning speaker, magician, prankster, and the king of dad jokes. He was a adventurous man as well, from taking many cross-country trips on his motorcycle to traveling the world when he was in the Navy back in the 70s. He definitely enjoyed life. As we were getting out of the car, I set my daughter down, and her little legs started running towards Grandpa, almost falling a few times as she just learned to walk. As they embraced, Grandpa scooped her up, and both had big smiles on their faces until Chloe realized there was a giant bird on his shoulder and got down as quickly as she got up. I only visit my dad usually a few times a year, so it's great to be at his property on such a beautiful day. One of my favorite memories I had of that day was seeing my dad walking and holding hands with his first grandchild, exploring the gardens and smelling the flowers as they went along. I was observing all this from under a 100-year-old tree sitting on one of their old porch swings they had hanging from its branches, enjoying the beautiful view of the countryside. Little did I know that that would be the last time we'd be together creating those memories. As the night went on, I couldn't help but think how perfect of a day we had, from exploring the gardens to playing in the barn and the rope swing, trying to harass its birds, teaching them to say swear words, and having a wonderful conversation and laughter over a great dinner my stepmother had prepared for us. As it started to get late, we decided to pack up our things and say our goodbyes. One of the last things I remember saying to my dad was, "Love you, old man. Hopefully you don't get any more deer." He had a horrible track record and just got his prize truck back from the last year he did. As we were leaving, I couldn't help but notice the clouds rolling in. It looked like it was about to storm. We were driving by a lake, and I looked over and saw the dark sky blending with the dark water of the lake. And I remember it was oddly beautiful and frightening at the same time. I remember feeling a bit uneasy about it. And by the time we got home, it was storming and raining like I had never experienced until that night. We put my daughter to bed like we normally do, and I turned on the TV and fell asleep on the couch. And I was awoken by a loud knock on the door, roughly around, I remember, 1 a.m. And it's one of those knocks that you don't have a good feeling from. I answered the door, and I was greeted by 2 police officers. And they proceeded to tell me that Arnold Gallenbeck had passed away. And I remember being really confused as to why they were telling me my grandpa died and not telling this to my dad. They went on to say that he lived in Marquezan, it was the city my dad lived in, and I finally put two and two together and I was still half asleep. My dad was a junior, known to everybody as Arnie. My grandpa was known as Arnold to most people, so when they said Arnold, I immediately thought my grandfather. Come to find out, about 15 minutes after we left my dad's property, a powerful F3 tornado came by and took everything in its path, including my dad, Arnie Gallenbeck Jr. My stepmother ended up getting taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and my stepsister was also on the property that night as well. I asked the police if they found her, and they had no idea she was even there. I found out later she actually left about 5 minutes after we did and had to pull over on the side of the road because the storm got so bad. Once the storm lightened up, she actually ended up calling the house and got a busy signal. She thought nothing of it and just went on her way. So the next morning, I got a call from the authorities letting me know I could claim the property from the National Guard, which was basically put into place in case of looters. That tornado went on a path of destruction for miles that night, and in total in Wisconsin there was 17 tornadoes that day, that night. Before I could go back to my dad's property that morning, I happened to be watching the news, and I saw his place from a helicopter that was flying over, reporting the damage. And seeing that, my heart sank, seeing the aftermath of destruction, barely recognizing the property from the night before. I was overcome with sadness and gratitude, sadness from all the loss and gratitude from just being alive. And instantly I was put into, I was the adult taking care of my dad's affairs. I had to call his work and let him know what had happened and tell him that he wouldn't be coming in any longer. And he was about to retire soon from a long career with John Deere. That phone call really made me realize what had happened as the shock of the situation started to wear off a tiny bit, and how grateful I was to be alive. I felt that I was meant to leave when I did, and that I may have more purpose to my existence at that point. And up until then, I was pretty lost in life. I was newly married, just had our first child, and we were struggling as a new family. That was the first time I remember feeling that I was meant to do more, and it was a wake-up call. And I was talking to my mom that morning, who at that point was divorced from my dad for about 10 years, and telling her what had happened, and I was making funeral arrangements. And she went on to tell me how proud she was of me and taking care of everything, and that she felt that I've come a long way in life. And hearing your mom say that, I was just so grateful for hearing those words, and having a parent tell you that, especially in their circumstances, was what I exactly needed to hear at that time. When I finally made it out to his property that morning, I was greeted by a news crew, and since he was the only one to die in all of these tornadoes, it quickly became a news story. I declined to be interviewed that morning. I was still overcome by the amount of destruction and still had yet to put it into words myself. When I finally got on the property, I was amazed to see the damage firsthand. It was where his home, barn silo once stood, was nothing more but concrete and a pile of wood, and his beautiful gardens and 100-year-old trees from the day before were nothing but memories from the day and years before, basically. And so when I started walking the property, I started seeing things that made absolutely no sense to me. His prize truck that just got fixed, thrown far into the field, landing on all four wheels, destroyed once again. One side completely full of dirt, and the other side was clean, like spotless clean. His living room carpet rolled up like he just bought it. A children's pedal John Deere tractor was sitting in the yard like nothing ever happened, like where the kids left it. I started to walk some more, and I started to hear his voice. I started to hear the words, "Pretty bird, hello, pretty bird." And I was like, what the hell? And so I started following the voice, and I ended up lifting up some floorboards of what used to be his kitchen to find his African gray, one of his birds. Although he was pretty damaged, we were temporarily able to save him. It was amazing to see throughout the day the amount of people that started coming to that property and helping clean up. People I didn't know, people from all walks of life. It was beautiful to see people willing to come and help a complete stranger, you know, and people who knew my dad, of course. And then in early 2018, or I'm sorry, this is where I get to my picture. The outpouring of love from the community helped immensely with the burden of cleaning up, and along trying to plan a funeral. It brought me to tears and smiles, feeling that love for one another. It was such a beautiful experience within something so tragic. In 2018, my now wife Sarah and I moved to our first home in Marion. We started our own gardens and creating memories at our place, making a special space for not only us, but for anyone who comes to visit or stay. Fast forward to 2020 when the derecho hit. I was coming home, I was greeted with that same feeling from my dad's, but in my neighborhood. I saw people from all walks of life, people I didn't know, come together to help clean up debris from the road and people's homes. As I started to help, I was thrust back into that day of people helping out my dad's. I couldn't help but think that maybe home is not only a place, but maybe it's in coming together as one, with non-judgment as humans. Not only helping each other in the time of need, but every day through love and kindness. Those small actions of love and kindness not only help me find the feeling of home, but also a place in my heart to always come back to. Thank you.